The fourth topic in the exam is called creating and working with layers. Here we are going to talk about the basic layer concepts, then blend modes and opacity, masking, filtering layers, and applying layer styles. In this first video, as always, I am going to give you an overview of the topic, and then I'm going to explain each of these areas in separate videos. So first we need to remember all the types of layers we can create in Photoshop. Well, we can have background layers, which is specific layer always at the bottom of your layer stack. And it can be modified or adjusted, but it can't be moved around. So it's partially locked. Then we have standard layers like this one, or if I create a new empty layer, that's also a standard layer. Then we can create shape layers with a vector shape tool if it's set to shape mode. So that rectangle layer is a vector shape layer. Then we can use the type tool and we can create type layers. So that's a type layer there. And we can also turn a normal layer into a smart object, or actually anything can be turned into a smart object. But I'm just going to right click on this layer and choose convert to smart object. That means I created an embedded source for this layer, and even if I make changes on it, I will always be able to revert back to the original source that's saved into the smart object. And then we can also have video layers if we import video files, and we can also have adjustment layers. So for example, I just added a hue saturation adjustment layer, which automatically comes up here as a separate layer. It's good to go through all the options in the layer menu, because you will find here interesting things like the hide show a layer option, which I even assigned a custom keyboard shortcut to, but by default there's no keyboard shortcut for this. So for example, if I select these 4 layers and I want to turn their visibility off at the same time, I can use the layer hide layers option, and I can use the same option again to show them all of these together. It works on single or multiple layers as well. And there's also options like the layer, new layer based slice, which again can be also in the exam. So it creates slices based on the selected layer. You can also change the thumbnails in your layers panel. So let me just close these panels here. And if I right click on any of the thumbnails, I can first of all set their size. So I can set them all to no thumbnails, for example, then they will be much smaller. Or I can set them to large thumbnails and they will be much bigger. And I can also choose clip thumbnails to layer bounds or to document bounds. If I have document bounds, then I will see exactly how they are related to the whole document or the canvas. And if I set it to layer bounds, then the thumbnails will be trimmed to the contents of each layer. We can also assign colors to these layers, which can help us to easily find them in the future. And there are also quite a lot of keyboard shortcuts whenever we work with layers. First of all, we can alt-click on an eye icon to turn off all the other layers and just show that specific layer. Alt-click again will reveal everything back as it was. We can click and drag over the eye icons to turn them all off or show them again. If I control or command click on the new layer icon, that will create the new layer below the active layer, while normally it would create it above the active layer. If I alt click on the new layer icon, it will give me the dialog box where I can also set a couple of things like a color label or blend mode, or to use previous layer to create a clipping mask and even the opacity. And if I want to use a keyboard shortcut to create the new layer, I can hold down Command-Shift-N or Control-Shift-N on PC. And in that case, I will see the dialog box. And if I want to avoid the dialog box, so skip it with the keyboard shortcut, then I will have to use Command-Shift and Alt-N together. So Control-Alt-Shift-N on PC. And that will create a new layer without giving me the dialog box. If I want to create a new layer from multiple selected layers, then I can use Ctrl-Alt-E or Command-Alt-E on Mac, and that's called a stamp, creating a stamp from selected layers. If I want to create a stamp from all the visible layers in my document, I can use Ctrl-Alt-Shift-E or Command-Alt-Shift-E. And there's also a couple of keyboard shortcuts if we have groups. So I'm going to put these layers in groups like that. And I'm going to also create a group inside a group. So we will have several levels of grouping here. So if I control click on a top layer group arrow, that will open or close all the top level layer groups without opening the sub layer groups. Let me just close it back. If I alt click on the layer group arrow, that will open the selected layer group and its nested layer groups as well. And I can combine these two keyboard shortcuts together, so I can close all the layer groups. And if I hold down Control and Alt and click on any of the layer group arrows, then it will open all the top level layer groups and all the nested layer groups as well. And then again, Control Alt or Command Alt on Mac will close them again. And that's all I wanted to show you here in this overview of the topic. In the next video, I'm going to explain the basic concepts about layers.